Hello and welcome to Big Friendly Grub, and I hope you are safe and I hope you are well and I hope you are staying home. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm finding this whole coronavirus lockdown a little bit frustrating. I completely agree with it, it's totally necessary, but that doesn't mean to say I can't find it frustrating, doesn't mean to say you can't find it frustrating, upsetting, scary, all of those things. Your feelings are valid. But I am finding it frustrating. One reason being my routine is completely off. I like going to the gym, I like trying to get myself fitter, I like going running, and my routine is completely all over the place. But that's not about this. It's not a fitness video. I'm not going to start doing burpees in front of you. That's not about that at all. Now, one of the things I'm finding frustrating is that I love baking. You know this, I do baking videos. But all the stuff I bake tends to go to work. I share it with people. And at the moment, I have no one to share it with. I live by myself. I'm the only one here. If I bake something, I have to have it all. So I'm not really baking anything. The only thing I've baked is the soda bread, which I showed you how to make last week. If that video is still last week, I don't know. All time is merging into one. What year is it? But I digress. I'm not really baking anything at the moment because I'm the only one here and I'd have to eat it all, which is not obviously great for the whole, weight loss fitness thing. But I'm at that point now where I want to make cake. I would like some cake. I'm going to make cake. So I figured I might as well have a rummage around in my cupboards to see what I've got, to see what we can make, try and make something nice and simple. And I was having a look around and I found this. This is my mum's whiskey marmalade. It's not super whiskey-y because the alcohol gets kicked off. Cooked off. It could get kicked off, but no, it got cooked off. I don't drink, so it's not a big deal that it's got a bit of whiskey in it. It's not going to be like super alcoholic or anything. So I figured I will try and make use of this. I figured what I could do is a marmalade cake, a whiskey marmalade cake in this instance. I think this will go very, very nicely just into like a plain Victoria sponge. So we're going to make a base Victoria sponge, which you should be able to do with just like flour, eggs, sugar and butter, and hopefully you've got all these things at the moment. I know things are really hard to come by at the moment, but hopefully you've already got some in your fridge or in your cupboard or wherever you keep those things. But we're just going to kick it up by using this marmalade because I'm not a huge marmalade eater by itself. I don't generally put it on toast or anything, but I like using it in things. You can be quite versatile with marmalade, and in this case, it's going to make a great cake, because we can also use it for a glaze on top afterwards. So it's going to be really, really nice. You're going to get that orange flavour with a little hint of whiskey in it, which will give it some nice flavour. It won't be boozy or anything, but it will just give it really nice flavour. And I figured this would be something that would be nice and easy and simple to do at home because we're not making buttercream or anything like that. So I am going to give this a go. I'm going to see how this turns out, and hopefully we'll get a really nice cake out of it. So let's get cracking. That wasn't a deliberate egg joke, but we are going to be cracking some eggs. To get started with our cake, we're going to go through a normal Victoria sponge recipe, basically. We're going to be using equal quantities of pretty much everything. We're going to be using 250 grams of flour, 250 grams of sugar, that's caster sugar, and 250 grams of room temperature butter. And we're also going to need 4 large eggs. So I'm going to start off by creaming together my sugar and butter. In goes the butter. And in we go, and just whisk this up until it's nice and light and creamy and fluffy. There we go, that's had a good few minutes beating. You can see how much lighter and fluffier and creamier it is, and that's kind of the thing we want. So now we can actually do our eggs. So we're going to want to put our eggs in one at a time, and I emphasize that because in like the second video I ever made, I told everyone to put their eggs in one at a time. Then what did I do? I went ahead and put them all in at once. So put them in one at a time like this. See, 1 egg, and now we beat it in. And then we repeat. Now, if it looks like your mixture is starting to curdle, if it looks like it's separating, when you put in an egg, you can also put in a tablespoon of the flour, and that will help prevent the curdling. But at the moment, it seems okay, so I'm going to do the rest of the eggs now. That's our eggs and sugar all creamed together and looks lovely and smooth and creamy. Now at this stage I'm going to put in a teaspoon of vanilla extract. Then usually at this point, this is where I would start adding in the flour, which I am going to do, but because this is going to be a marmalade cake, or specifically a whiskey marmalade cake, I'm also going to put in 2 tablespoons of the marmalade. 1 tablespoon. This has got lovely shreds of orange in there, so you're going to get nice texture from this too. That's 2 of those. Now if you don't have whiskey marmalade, that's fine, you could use normal marmalade, but if you don't have marmalade, then you could also use perhaps something like apricot jam. That would also go very well with this and would also make a super glaze afterwards. And I'm just going to mix this in. Now that's in, I'm going to add in half of the flour first. Just going to do it in 2 batches so we don't knock too much air out of this, and I'm just going to do it on a very low speed, the lowest speed that I can get with this mixer. And then the other half of the flour. Now this is self-raising flour, but I'm also going to add in another teaspoon's worth of baking powder because I just like to make sure it's got that extra lift in it. And then mix in slowly the rest of the flour. I'm just going to get around these edges because there is some excess flour around the edge, and I will make sure that's all in. And then we're just going to finish this off with a couple tablespoons of milk just to loosen up the batter a bit because it's a little thick at the moment, so we want it a little bit looser. Quickly fold that in. This will help it get into the tin a bit easier. We'll be able to spread it around a bit more. There we go, that's a much better consistency, a bit smoother. A little bit easier to move around. So now we can get this into our tin. I've got a 10-inch tin here, it's a springform one, and I've already lined it with baking paper and also greased the sides a bit with some butter to make sure we can get this out of the tin. And I'm just going to get in all of our cake batter. I'm not separating this into 2, we've got no buttercream or anything like this, it's just going to be one solid cake. And I'm just going to use this palette knife just to spread out the mixture so it's roughly even. Now this can go into the oven for about 30 to 35 minutes, but as always with cakes, we'll check them along the way. We'll use a skewer to make sure it's cooked all the way through properly. And we'll be back in about 30 to 35 minutes. Right, our cake has had about 45 minutes in the oven. It's had 45 minutes because I checked it after 35 minutes and it was still wobbly in the middle and it was not cooked. So I decided to give it another 10 minutes, and if you see here, if I poke this in with a skewer like so, into the middle, then that comes out nice and clean. You might be able to see that if it focuses. So that is cooked, that is done, it is lovely golden brown on top. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to pop this onto a cooling rack while it's still in the tin. Just give it a few minutes to cool down while it's still in the tin before I try and take it out. Because for our next step, we're going to want the cake still nice and warm because we're going to do a glaze to go over the top of it, which will soak into the cake while it's still lovely and warm, and it will just make it absolutely fantastic, flavourful and really, really moist. Even though everyone hates that word, it's the right word for it. Right, I've got a small pan over a medium-low heat, and I'm going to pop in a couple of tablespoons of our whiskey marmalade into the pan. It's got some lovely chunks of orange on there, so that will give it a nice texture for the top as well. And I'm also going to pop in about a tablespoon's worth of water. Then I'm just going to mix this together with the water to make a smooth glaze, well, as smooth as you can get with big chunks of peel in it, that will go over the top of our cake. So that's melted down, that looks good. That's going to be able to drizzle over the top of our cake. So I'm going to pop this to one side. And then we need to act fast to get our cake out nice and warm, but keep it intact as well, because this can be tricky. Right, this has had a few minutes cooling down out of the oven, but it's still going to be hot, so I'm going to try and do this very, very carefully. So I'm going to get this out of our springform tin first, grease the sides so that comes out nice and easily. Then we need to get that bottom off, so I'm going to use another cooling rack, flip it over like so, get my watch caught underneath this. Oh no. Okay, it's fine, we're fine. And then peel this away. It should come away nice and easily because of that, thank you. And then gonna peel this away as well. Be very careful because the cake is still warm, so it's going to be very, very delicate. Don't rush it or you might tear away big chunks of your cake. That looks and smells fantastic. Now I'm going to pop down a board for it to go on, and then I'm going to flip this over one more time. Whoop, there we go. That was not a disaster like we thought. It did not all come crashing down and hurt inside. And we want our glaze to soak into the cake, so we're going to get our skewer that we used earlier, and I'm just going to poke around the cake all over to make some holes for the glaze to soak into. And I'm just going to spoon our glaze all over the top, get a lot of that chunks of orange from the marmalade in there. Let it drizzle down the sides, it's all good. And that is it. That is the cake pretty much ready. We just need to give it like a little bit of time, probably about 5-10 minutes at most, just for it to cool down a little, just to let that set on top of it. But this is the sort of cake that is best eaten when it's warm, and boy, this is going to be good. I can't wait to get stuck into this. Right, this has had long enough to cool down now, and by long enough I mean my patience has run out in waiting for it to cool down enough for me to try it. So I just want to get stuck into this, so let's cut into this. It looks fantastic. What is a reasonable slice? Who cares? I'm here by myself. I'm going to have to eat this whole thing. There is no shame at the moment, no shame at all. Oh, it's quite a big bit. That's what I've gone for. That looks great. Let's get this slice out and onto a plate. Did that just rhyme? Maybe that just rhymes. Oh, hello. Hello. Look at that. That is looking great. That's almost like a pudding at the moment, like a dessert, because it's still soft and moist and warm. And yeah, it's almost like a treacle pudding or something like that. And this is going to be so good. Haven't really had much in the way of sweet things in the last couple of weeks. Odd biscuit here and there, but that's it. So this is going to be a mega treat. There we are, one delicious slice of whiskey marmalade cake, or just marmalade cake if you're not making it with whiskey marmalade. But how simple was that? That was just a basic sponge recipe with a little twist of some marmalade added in there, and then a marmalade glaze on top. But like I say, you could use potentially jam for this as well. I would suggest something like apricot jam, something with subtle flavours. That turned out really well. That looks really good. I'm hoping it will taste really good. It certainly smells really good. And I'm going to stop saying really good, because it'd be really good if I could just taste this and for you to have me shut up. So I'm just going to try this now. Oh, it is warm, still like a sponge, like a treacle sponge pudding. And let's give it a go. That's quite a large bit. Sorry, I'm just standing here eating this. That is really good. That is like a treacle sponge almost, because it's still warm. And you've got the lovely, soft, light, fluffy sponge, which is enriching slightly with the marmalade in there. And with the actual marmalade glaze on the top, you get a bitterness from it. And now that it's all been cooked, the whiskey flavour has mostly come off. It's not boozy, which is good because I don't drink, but you do get a slight hint of the whiskey in there, and it just accentuates it, takes it a little notch above. And it's just, oh, that is really, really good. And that is so easy. I do suggest you try it if you've got the stuff for it. And if you're hankering after a really nice cake that doesn't take too much effort, which isn't too complicated, then that is perfect. That is so good. This is just something to show you that you can do simple things at home with all this like restrictions and stuff on going out. You can work on your baking, you can try things that are simple. If you've got the ingredients, then give it a go. Things are a bit harder to get hold of, but now things are a bit more structured. You know, the supermarkets and things are trying to get people in and out, making things a bit easier, making sure there's enough for everyone. If you do want to give baking a go, then I would highly suggest you start with something like this. Even just the basic sponge underneath it. You don't even have to do the marmalade. Just that then dusted with a bit of sugar on top will be lovely. So I highly suggest you give something like this a go. It's so easy. And hopefully you enjoyed this. Hopefully you're finding these videos useful. The soda bread recipe seems to be going down quite well as well. It's letting people try out making bread, but not needing a load of skill. So if you want something like that, go back and watch that one as well. But otherwise, I really do hope you're enjoying these. I hope you're staying safe. I hope you're staying well. I hope you're staying home. And all the usual stuff. If you enjoyed the video, give it a like. If you're enjoying what I'm doing, subscribe to the channel, all that usual stuff. It'll really make things like... Sorry, the weather has just taken an absolute turn for the worst. Don't know what's going on out there. It might be the apocalypse. We're already halfway there anyway. But you know the drill by now. If you enjoyed this, then give the channel a subscribe. It will just make my day a little bit better, that's all. And that's it. I will see you next time on Big Friendly Grub. Bye.